case, but one Luke O'Brien is suing the devil today.
Luke O'Brien versus Satan.
Yes, Your Honor.
You're suing Satan.
You're taking this case seriously.
Well, of course I'm taking it seriously.
Do you honestly believe that that's the devil?
The devil is alive and he's well.
Do you expect the public to actually buy your Satan?
Well, do you expect the public to really buy the fact that you are $12,000 in debt on your credit cards?
I just want to say, huge fan. I adore you. I worship you. I love Kiss.
What?
Kiss.
I hate Kiss. I'm a Tom Jones man.
Welcome back to another episode of Boys Bible Study. We are here, still spreading the good news after all these years. My name is Ash. I am with my co-hosts,
Scott,
Julian,
and today our very special guest is our friend Sam Sodomsky. Hey, Sam.
Praises be. Happy to be here.
So nice to have you. Sam is a musician, music writer, and co-host of the Welcome to Chicago podcast.
That's right. Thank you for having me.
Tell us about Welcome to Chicago for anyone listening to Boys Bible Study who hasn't heard that podcast yet. What do you all talk about there?
Totally. Yeah, it's a podcast where I, along with music writers and musicians, Winston Cook-Wilson and Andy Cush, we go album by album in the Chicago discography and just kind of discuss the history of this band we all hate.
Really? How do you feel personally about Chicago?
I think out of the three of us, I'm probably the one who hates them the most, or who my taste aligns the least with what they did. So it's definitely really masochistic and tedious and fun.
Was it doing the pod that increased the hate, or did you sort of know what you were getting into, or was it spending more time with the material?
No, I mean, I love being inundated with stuff that I'm not familiar with or that I'm predisposed not to like, which is part of why this was so fun. But with Chicago, it's not like I hated them before. I just truly gave them no time at all. So doing this is like a weird confrontation with stuff I try to pretend never happened, maybe.
Yeah, a confrontation with material is very similar to the ethos of this podcast as well. So I think you're right at home here. We're so happy to have you. Quick, before we get into the movie, I wanted to know just your opinion as a music scholar. Who are some popular musicians who you would say are doing the Lord's work? Who's on God's side?
Well, definitely you, Ash. Yeah, I see the Spirit of God in all of your creations.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm definitely a Christian pop star, I would say.
Yeah, a lot of my values come from just living with your music and watching your videos. So,
okay, well, I'm love to hear that. Who would you say is doing the devil's work? What musicians are on the devil's side right now?
I don't know, because after watching, I thought I liked the devil. I like a lot of metal. So I thought I was into Satan, but after this movie, Satan looks kind of square. So I don't really know. I'm my thoughts have been tested.
Yeah.
So this movie was effective. Good.
Yeah, I think I'm going with God now.
Oh, so glad to hear. Well, let's see if we can't fully bring you over to the righteous path by the end of this episode.
Looking forward to it.
Well, we brought Sam here today to watch with us a 2011 film called Suing the Devil. Julian had seen this one before. I had never seen it. How did we acquire this film? How did we find it?
I think this was a Netflix recommendation. I know I saw Last Ounce of Courage on Netflix. I don't know how I got to that. And I think I was recommended this and related titles.
I didn't know these were on Netflix. I actually forgot that Last Ounce of Courage was on Netflix at some point. But I guess you could put anything on there, right?
They come and go like a thief in the night.
I do remember, Julian, you showing us the trailer for this movie too. I think it was right before we started this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good movie. I don't know. I'm going to be honest. I was, I think I dozed off for a minute or two during this when we were watching it this time.
I would say overall first time seeing it. I mean, we'll get to our full review at the end. I enjoyed the movie. I think it struggled with an issue that some of the movies we watch which is like, it could have been like 45 minutes shorter. Like it had such good moments, many of which we'll discuss in the next hour. But like, they could have cut a couple cycles of plot here. I really think
they really drag things out, and there's a lot of like. It feels like they do a scene that's pretty good, and they know that it was a good scene, so they do it like 4 more times.
Yeah,
in different like iterations.
Yeah, that was definitely a weakness of this movie, but there were many strong points as well. So let's start introducing some of the characters and plots and things that anyone listening who hasn't seen Suing the Devil yet might want to know. And as we're doing that, we'll talk about its themes and its scriptural tie-ins and things like that. Scott, why don't you start us off a little bit with introducing Suing the Devil?
Well, first of all, I thought this was a great accidental follow-up to The Encounter.
Mm-hmm.
The Encounter being the movie that we watched for our podcast last week. In it, we get a take of Jesus in real life. He runs a diner. You could say poorly, you could say really well. Depends on your interpretation. Definitely gave me server anxiety, though. But the whole movie takes place in the diner for the most part. It's bookended by a couple other spots, but very similarly to this movie today, Suing the Devil, we get to see the devil in person, in action, in a courtroom, and pretty much the whole movie takes place in a courtroom with a couple other asides, which I noticed that every time they shoot outside, you see the Sydney Opera House in the background. Really, really took advantage of that.
Yeah, I was very pleasantly surprised to see this was going to be an Australian film. That definitely warmed me up.
Well, it was Mouth-Watering Productions.
Yeah, this is a Mouth-Watering Productions
look up
joint.
Anything about them?
No, I didn't. Good
that
name.
does not sound like a Christian production name.
Right.
Yeah, I guess it'll remain a mystery what they do. But yeah, this film had pretty big names. I mean, I feel like par for the course in this genre is you have one actor or actress that you'll recognize in each film, and their contribution to the film sort of just, it can fall anywhere between like a simple cameo to like a starring role. And this one, we saw Malcolm McDowell, who has been in a titan of British cinema. Not so much anymore, though, if he's in this movie, but you probably recognize him. If you don't recognize the name, he plays the lead character in Clockwork Orange.
A very devilish role.
Yeah. Seemed like he was channeling that for Suing the Devil.
He's got a severe face. I love that about him. I love a man with a severe face.
Yeah. And so does the devil in certain drawings, you know? Long pointy chin and twirly mustache.
Mm-hmm.
And we got Tom Sizemore back too, our boy.
Tom Sizemore, King. Pride of Detroit.
And a big one for me, Rebecca St. James, who, do any of you know who that is?
No.
She is a Christian pop star who broke out when she was 16, and I think her first single was just called God.
Whoa. I've never heard of her.
Who did she play?
She played Jasmine. I forget which character that is, though.
Oh, was she the one on the news show who roots for Luke over Satan?
That could have been it. She might have been opposite Tom Sizemore in that weird, like, shoehorned in, like, news commentary segment of the film.
You know, as far as shoehorned in news commentary goes, this has been one of my favorites in all the movies we watched. Mm-hmm. The style they did it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is Tom Sizemore was actually in another movie we watched, but I can't remember what it was.
I believe.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. Did he also play like a new? No, he was like a mob guy, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. He is not looking too hot in this movie. I don't know if anybody else thought that, but I don't want to say anything slanderous about this guy or libelous about this guy, but he needs help.
To be fair, it was kind of a weird
in
lighting and green screen job.
Yeah, it did him no favors, that's for sure.
Are you like worried about him in a genuine there seems to be something wrong?
I have heard stories about him from a mutual friend of ours.
Damn.
That I don't want to get into it. I don't want us to get notoriety from being sued by Tom Sizemore. Suing Boys Bible Study.
Oh, we're gonna have to have a vote on that later. Yeah, for $8 trillion.
And then the lead plaintiff in the film, the suer of the devil himself, Bart Bronson, plays Luke O'Brien. And this guy, looking at his IMDb, he's been in one short and one feature film, and this was it. And
really?
That's it for his entire career.
You know what?
This was 9 years ago.
I gotta say, it really shows. He's a fucking terrible actor. A real schlub.
Yeah, he blew it.
Yeah,
he's like got that thing where he has like resting smile face, where it always looks like he's smiling, even when he's like in neutral expression, and that really, that kind of, he's doomed from the start in this film, and one of the worst like fake criers you will ever see in anything.
Yeah,
and that wasn't his. Well, I shouldn't spoil anything.
It's all right.
Yo, you almost gave away a huge spoiler.
There's one I want to wait a little bit for, I think.
Well, let's in that case, let's get going on this film. I will just start off by saying that, true to the title of the film, Suing the Devil, this film is about a young man who decides to sue the devil. Bart Bronson plays the main character, Luke O'Brien. Luke is a young man who is fed up with the world and all the evil in the world. His mother was killed by a drunk driver. He turns on the news and all he sees is bad news. Where's the news? Where's the news channel that shows the good news? That's what I want to know.
Paging John Krasinski.
Yeah.
My favorite of the news blips that popped up for him was oil companies won't apologize for gas prices going up. Like, yep. I don't.
That's a recurring grievance against oil companies in this. The only grievance one would say against oil companies in this movie is that the price of gas is too expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if it's like a 2011 thing, but it is like all of their examples of evil in the world it's like they could only think of a few. It's like, yeah, it sucks that like tobacco sucks, oil sucks, and like extraneous prices on things suck, like baggage claims.
Yes.
And that's like all they have.
Hidden fees, I think, are a big thing in 2011.
The early 2010s were sort of like a 90s revival, and that like everyone was innocent. You know, it was like a decade after 9/11, so we had kind of like evolved from that. But we hadn't really gone into the abject terror of the late 2010s. It was definitely an innocent.
Yeah.
I mean, LMFAO were one of the biggest bands in the world. I mean,
True.
like
only 2010 kids will remember parking tickets.
Who wants to take it from Luke O'Brien's next steps into getting the devil on the horn?
Yeah, sure. So he's getting in his car to go kill the drunk driver who hit his mom. He has a gun and everything, and you see him pulling the gun out, and then it turns out he forgot the bullets, which later in the movie makes a lot of sense because he's an idiot. Then when he reaches back in the glove box, a Bible falls out. And then he goes to the library for some reason. I don't remember why. But he's doing some studying, and he gets the idea, hey, you know who's really responsible for this stuff? Satan. I'm going to sue Satan. And so he decides to sue Satan and he goes through the whole legal process, and he's going to sue him for $8 trillion, which I don't think that ever got explained how he came up with that exact number.
Never did. Absolutely not.
There's a really funny part I think we should at least mention, so you can put the audio clip in where he's talking to his girlfriend who has a vicious cough this early in the movie.
She has COVID.
And
100.
She has a headache later too.
They're quarantined in Australia. He's just like telling her everything that has happened in his life up until that point. And I think he makes the really funny remark where he's like, "Are you getting all this?"
My mother was killed by a drunk driver, Gwen. The same drunk driver is now free on the streets with all the other filth out there, including the ones that stole our money. Are you following any of this?
My mom was killed by a drunk driver. I want to go kill the guy who did it, and I'm studying for the bar to become a lawyer. And she's just like sitting in the kitchen coughing.
I just also love that dramatic device where a character is just like, this is the exposition of the movie. Like, I'm going to tell you all the details about myself right now. I love that.
For how simple this movie is, there is a lot of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do we not find out that he was trying to be a lawyer until the very end?
I think they mention it early on.
Is that like a... Oh, okay.
I think so.
I wasn't sure if I just gave away
There's a
big
scene where he's like, I'll never be a lawyer now, or like something that. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'm guessing he hired like a team of financial experts and like insurance appraisers to come up with the $8 trillion of damage that Satan has done to humanity, which is like, is that even, that's not that much more than what, like the amount of money that Jeff Bezos has right now.
Julian, I think you bring up an interesting point, which is like the way that this movie sort of like handles the idea of corrupt, like hyper capitalism, sort of, because like the 8 trillion goes into the same category as him being like, and the oil companies, like the prices are too high. Like the extent of the analysis of how money runs the world stops at that. Like, you know, why is 8 trillion significant? Like what analysis has gone into that? You know, is there anyone in the world who's hoarding $1 trillion, and how does that compare to Satan's influence in the world?
Right. And we're not withholding any information for the sake of like keeping it spoiler free at this point. There's never any explanation as to how he came up with $8 trillion, where that money is going to come from, where it's going to go. At no point has anybody questioned the fact that if this guy wins this lawsuit, he will suddenly be in possession of $8 trillion.
Yeah.
And he can do whatever he wants with it.
Yeah.
Well, I thought that was going to end up going to his partner who has a serious illness, but then that turns out to not scan, so not to spoil anything. But that's what I thought the whole thing was leading to, like hospital bills.
Well, they're in Australia, so they don't have to worry about that.
Oh,
that's a good point. That's a good point.
Such a U.S.
He
clouded vision.
He could have just donated that to all the GoFundMes active in the United States right now.
It's nice to have the Christian movie trope, though, of it was not a spoiler when we found out what her disease was, because in any Christian movie, if somebody has a cough like that, you're like, oh, they're terminally ill.
Yeah, especially if there's a scene later on where they say they have a headache, and then that's it. It's brought to your attention as the viewer that someone has a headache.
Right. Chekhov's headache, as it's known.
Despite the fact that that's something that is like probably a weekly occurrence in life, in real life, is somebody mentioning that they have a headache.
If I lived with that guy, I'd have headaches all the time.
Yeah, totally.
Well, Sam, what happens next in this film?
Well, what happens next is like an hour-long trial intercut with scenes of Satan bloviating to the press and Luke as our protagonist, like agonizing over the fact that he can't convince a jury that Satan is evil. It's super repetitive.
So he brings his lawsuit to the judge, and she gets a real big kick out of it, and because the Australian judicial system is a joke to her, she forces him to follow through on the lawsuit instead of just dismissing it right there.
I knew she was going to dismiss the case. I just wanted to vent my frustration at Satan. So what she said next took me completely by surprise.
You are going to have to give the defendant, in this case Satan, notice. Find a process server. I'll give you 30 more days.
Your Honor, but I can't.
Well, I won't allow a default unless the defendant has been served. Next case.
And he has to serve... Yeah, he has to offer a service to Satan, and so he goes around town. He goes to a law firm, and then he goes to a strip club, because as we know, all sex workers are employees of Satan. And I'm being ironic.
Thank you.
Yeah. And what was the third place he went to? Probably an airline where they're hidden baggage fees.
No, it was a law firm, I think. It was like a big law firm.
He confronted a couple of goths, like, standing by the water.
Yeah. Right.
Are you guys Satan worshippers? Just in case, can you give this to Satan if you see him around? Thanks.
And that guy had that great Satan Rules t-shirt on. I was like, I get it. I see what's going on here.
Yeah, he, like, asked 3 teenagers, like, if you've seen Satan, just give him this.
Yeah, so what happens next is Satan actually shows up, and he's played by Malcolm McDowell, and he plays him like, I don't know, this is just like the most obnoxious portrayal of Satan or demons that is so common in media, where he's like this just corny, like, rock star guy who always wears black, and it's just
sarcastic.
Like, yeah, and you said, Sam, because there's a point where somebody asks him if he likes the band Kiss, and he says he prefers Tom Jones, which is just like such a weird... I don't know, if you were portraying Satan if you wanted like a Satan in a film that was actually like scary, yeah, it would be more like a Burzum type guy, like you were saying.
He said he loves noise in it.
Oh, good point.
And that he invented gangster rap and techno.
I created noise. Unlike the dumb idiots you are, you worshipped it. Humans love the noise I created. Car alarms, motorcycles, leaf blowers, nightclubs, gangster rap, techno music. Everything that creates noise, I invented. And you know what? Noise drowns out any thoughts of God. What's the matter? Don't you love the music of hell?
He should have some combination noise gangster rap techno band. What band would that be?
Death Grips.
I loved that part. Yeah, I think it would just be to the Burzum point. It would have been funny if Satan was like, I don't like Kiss. I prefer Burzum's ambient albums from when he was in prison.
Everyone watching would be like,
but yeah, Ash, do you want to tell us about the top-notch legal team that Satan brings with him?
That's a really good point. Yeah. There is a really extended sequence before we get to trial where Satan just one by one meets the very expensive legal team that he has assembled. And this reminded me of something. It reminded me of like a fable or like another weird like Pilgrim's Progress type allegory where everyone just has like a very silly name. But I wrote down the names of all of his lawyers, and they are as follows: Mr. Innocent, Mr. Banks, Ms. Scarlet, Mr. Ice, Ms. Shy, and Mr. Think Tank.
Ms. Shy is a good one. Is that like supposed to be a sin? I don't understand the names.
I really don't.
There was also a Mr. In Yo Face in the credits. I don't remember
What?
them saying that person, but that's in the credits.
I do not remember that.
maybe that was one of like the people, like the paparazzo who confronts Satan or who confronts Luke.
when you see these attorneys in action, there's really nothing that spectacular about them. They just object a lot, which for the lay person, TV and movie courtroom scenes, you kind of keep track of who's winning by the amount of times they object and whether or not the judge allows it or overturns it.
Right.
Overrules it. And that happens a lot in this movie. And Satan's team objects a lot, and they don't really do that much stuff that's like amazing. They'll just one of the attorneys just straight up screams in Luke O'Brien's face. And then they cut to the analysis show after that scene, and the host is like, well, clearly a big win for the devil today.
Yeah, that was really funny. The objection shit got so tedious. I mean, literally less than halfway into the movie, when the first courtroom scene was just every 30 seconds, lawyers interrupting with objection. It was like, holy shit, we have another hour 15 to go of this. That, I just really realized what I was in for at that moment.
I am suing the devil himself. However, it's very important that you remember the whole world is at stake here. And that being over there is the cause of all the world's suffering.
Your Honor, objection! My client isn't a being. He's a fallen angel.
Right. Continue, Mr. O'Brien.
Yeah, also the judge kept overruling all of Satan's lawyers' objections. Anytime they objected to something, she was just overruled.
Did y'all think it was really a jury of Satan's peers? Was it a fair trial?
Everyone in the jury was a fallen angel.
Yeah, right.
I did jury duty for the first time this year, so I felt like I understood a little more what was going on. It was very true to my experience.
I have never been summoned.
I've never been selected. I've been summoned. I've never even gotten to the point where you're interviewed. Sam, can you give us a couple of hints as to what the case was about?
Well, let's just say the stake was all of humanity. No, it was
$8 trillion.
I was grand jury, so it was a bunch of different cases every day. It was in retrospect, I don't know if you guys get into this on the pod, but in the pre-quarantine world, it's kind of a weird fantasy of being with a group of people I would never know in my normal life. At the time I was oh shit, I have to do this every day. But in retrospect, it was a weird kind of vacation that I didn't have to take time off for. It was kind of ideal.
Yeah.
I have a similar, I understand why a lot of people would not, this is a terrible fear of a lot of people. But personally, I kind of miss moments. I feel as you get older, you don't have those experiences as much where you're in a room and forced to interact with a bunch of people you would never run into. You would never go out of your way to talk to that person.
It was totally first day of classes vibes, where the class lasted 2 weeks. That's the other thing. It lasted 2 weeks, so it was a total escape for my obligations.
Did you go in there? You go in there and headbutt the biggest juror?
Yeah.
Just to assert your dominance?
No, I was definitely, my persona was, loner. I didn't really talk to anyone, but people, made friends, and
yeah.
It was
Keep
wild.
your head down. Just go with whatever everybody else says, innocent or guilty.
Exactly. Use my voice only when needed, which no one in this jury did, I guess, but yeah.
Yeah, a real 12 Angry Men moment for you.
Yeah. I would have loved to see the deliberation among the jury. That could have been an interesting scene.
Yeah, this movie, okay, many movies we watch, an hour fucking 45, it only gave us the most tedious shit. And it's if you're going to take that much in your runtime, let's see the jury talking. Let's see what they think about this. Come on.
Mm-hmm.
You got to pay more for that.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Because none of them had speaking roles.
True.
It's a huge difference cost-wise. They're just
I do want to
background.
say, I would love to see the budget, because they sprung for a big-ass snake, but didn't want to spring for a typewriter or a laptop for the, what's it called?
The stenographer.
Yeah, exactly.
The stenographer was just air typing the entire time. There was no computer.
I did not notice that. That's incredible.
It's really funny.
But I do know that it costs about $3,000 for a day to have a snake, because you need a snake handler too, who's a professional.
Well, we were talking, this is Australia. That snake probably just showed up on its own.
And they just wrote it into the film.
Yeah, just roll with it.
They had to cut all the scenes out where there were just giant tarantulas crawling all over everyone.
Kangaroos destroying things in the courtroom.
Just punching people.
I want to just take a minute to talk about that. I think, in my opinion, this was one of the worst. This might have been the worst made movie that we have watched, just because it teeters on the edge of competence, but so often falls into just like complete amateur hour. And I think the fact that visually, it's not like the worst shot movie, but like audio wise, there's so many scenes where they just use the wrong audio tracks for people. So like someone will sound like they're 50 miles away from someone that they're like 10 feet from. There's a lot of scenes where there clearly was no dialogue written and they're just improvising, and they only took one take, or maybe that was just the best take that they could, which is really sad. And like Star Wars wipes for every scene, including a whooshing noise with every wipe. And just really strange editing choices. Letting scenes start way too early before anything happens, cutting too soon or cutting too late. Real bad stuff. Although the fireball that came out of Satan's mouth was pretty good.
The smoke out of his ears.
That's the thing. Like exactly like you were saying, there were some really competent moments. I have to agree, some of the worst audio editing I've ever heard in a film. That was like beyond something that was recorded on a camcorder. Like there were some characters' dialogue was just not in sync with their mouth moving. And then I thought it was just like the file we were using, but then like other characters in that same scene would be in sync. So it was just a total mess. But yeah, I mean, yeah, they were in a whole courtroom. I mean, like that they had these lavish indoor sets, and a snake, as we said. I guess then, if so much of this film is spent in the courtroom with these monotonous moments, maybe a good way to discuss it would be, what were some of our favorite moments, some of our favorite hijinks that the devil got into, or favorite lines throughout this court case?
Well, I like the line when what's the main character's name again? Luke. When he asks his friend to be his partner in this, she says, "Friends don't ask friends to sue Satan."
Yeah, that part where he was, that's actually brings up something, Scott, is that I actually enjoyed moments of the sense of humor in this movie. Like, I actually thought that there were some cute gags. Like, I don't know, like when Satan gave out his business card and it was like on fire. Like, that was kind of cute, you know? Hey.
I like that part.
Yeah, Come on, it's Satan,
I like when he called him Lukey Dookie.
Yeah.
You're not really Satan, are you?
Oh, and you're not Lukey Dookie, are you, idiot?
Well, you better have a bunch of good lawyers, because I'm going to take you down.
You're a little pipsqueak. Do you know how insignificant you are? I mean, with one, I could send you off into the abyss in a little red Corvette.
Something I thought was like, I haven't seen a lot of these, so maybe you can confirm it, but it seemed almost self-aware. Like, it gives a lot of space to the voices of people who might be cynical about a movie like this, or who might be cynical about the existence of Satan. Like, pretty much like up until the last 15 minutes, like Satan kind of is winning people over, and the people who follow Jesus's word are being argued against effectively, or what they imagine to be the language of people who go to Stanford and Harvard and like follow Satan's word.
I completely agree. I think that was one of the strengths of the movie early on, and almost made me think that we were going to end up watching one of the more self-aware movies that we had in our run so far. To like, answer your sort of question about that, I do think that this movie was a little atypically self-aware, at least in the beginning. To contrast it with The Encounter, which Scott already brought up, but we watched last week. There's many times in The Encounter where the Jesus character anticipates arguments and kind of like diffuses them in the moment. But I think that movie was a lot more just like, okay, well, it's obvious that I'm right and that God exists and all this stuff exists. And the arguments were done from that position. Whereas this film did seem like it was trying to sort of be like cute to like lure people in who may not have considered this topic before.
Yeah, which might even be like this was made in Australia versus most of the stuff we watch is made in the US.
Yeah, it could be.
I don't know.
Another funny line I really enjoyed was when Luke is on the stand. He's, on the witness stand as the plaintiff. And one of Satan's lawyers, I want to say maybe Miss Scarlet, but it doesn't really matter, comes up to him and says, "Have you ever done internet porn?"
Mr. O'Brien, have you ever done internet porn?
Yes.
How many times?
I don't know.
How about 341 times? Does that sound accurate?
Objection. Your Honor, this is irrelevant.
Irrelevant? I think not.
Overruled. Continue.
Perhaps it's accurate. But not after I was married.
I was going to say that line too.
Yeah. And they have a figure. They have a statistic. They say he has, quote unquote, done internet porn 341 times.
Is that like ever?
That's just since they were able to start tracking that with the Patriot Act. So we don't have any of the pre-9/11 doing porn numbers.
Right. Now, granted, this is Australia, so I believe that was known as the Kookaburra Act in Australia. But yes, it allowed the legal team to calculate how many times Luke has logged on to fallenangels.xxx.
And his wife was shocked. She had no idea that before they had met.
I was really looking forward to the conversation between them, where it's like, they didn't mean anything to me.
Yeah. He had to admit to her that he looked at internet porn, or he did internet porn 384 times, and she had to admit to him that she has a brain tumor.
Yes.
Oh my God. Now that we're talking about that, like how that was like such a, we are watching a Christian movie thing when I forget what the exact line is. I have it somewhere. Oh yeah. Don't worry about my brain cancer. I just want you to win this trial.
You're dying of cancer? Why didn't you tell me?
You just had so much on your plate. You know what? I want you to do this trial, okay? I want you to win it. You hear me? I want you to win it.
Oh, babe. I love you so much.
Yeah, that was great.
I was thinking that too. Like, would a symbolic gesture, like, even mean that much to her right now?
Yeah. He finds out via Satan telling him on a break that they are, that he needs to worry more about his wife's brain tumor.
Which is like a good point. Like, why are you not there for her? Like, Satan was like honestly like a good advisor in that instance.
Yeah, so the character of Satan is so inconsistent in this movie in terms of like what he's capable of, what he actually stands for, like why he feels like he's not going to win the trial, and they never explain why he even shows up to begin with.
Yeah, because another thing they bring up a lot in this movie is that the greatest trick the devil ever pulled is convincing everyone that he doesn't exist. Ugh. So if that's the case, then why would he ever show up?
Yeah, he's not committed to the bit. Like, come on.
I was thinking it'd be a more interesting movie if he was just a regular guy who thought he could speak more to the presence of Satan in the world and could win a trial against like some rando guy who believes in Jesus. Like, that would have been a more interesting argument.
Yeah, that would have been fun.
Yeah, definitely.
That would have been way more complicated, really. The inarguable fact that guy was Satan really, as one of you said, eliminated some of the mystery from this film. That could have potentially made it interesting.
And the like atrocities that he takes credit for are, we mentioned some of them earlier, but it's just like car alarms, motorcycle engines, customer service, and parking tickets, which I felt like the movie was really throwing like minimum wage earning people under the bus on that one to like equate a parking officer or a call center employee's work to, being an agent of the devil is just really like bordering classist.
Absolutely. And that is a definitely like a meta conversation about Christian genre film in general, because it's moments like that when you can really see the perspective of the filmmaker come through. The inconveniences of life are an affront to God. Like the ideological shifts that I don't agree with, or the inconveniences in my life. Think back to the first film we ever reviewed on this podcast, Last Ounce of Courage, where the fact that like certain businesses don't want to put up a Christmas tree is like a huge affront to the main character and therefore to God, I think that this film continued in that same tradition.
There are going to be so many Christian movies that come out in the next few years about being forced to wear a mask.
Absolutely.
Or the church shutting down because of the pandemic.
Absolutely.
Because, we're seeing this mindset run rampant across the United States.
Very much so. Basically feeling compelled to do anything outside of what you would want to do, and also feeling as if your freedom to consume has been infringed upon. Those things become the instruments of Satan. In this case, having to pay too much money for something, getting a parking ticket. These are the influence of Satan in our lives.
Although, on the other hand, he is criticizing, like, capitalism and, like, taxes on poor people. So, maybe he does have a point.
Let's hear him out.
But they really never get into any of that. Like, I was thinking, like, on one level, I'm, like, depicting Satan as this old white guy with, like, an army of lawyers behind him could have been an interesting mechanism to talk about that stuff, but it's like so literal. Like they're not at all interested in like larger implications, which I guess is the joke, but it like totally eliminates any political identity the movie might have.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think a lot of Christian genre films fall short in that way, and it's very interesting. There are in this film and in so many of the films we watch for this, there absolutely is the potential to use these symbols to start larger conversations, and it just never happens.
Similarly, last week with the encounter, they'll ask some pretty good questions to Jesus about why things the way they are, and they have all the time in the world to write what that answer is, and instead it's like pretty milquetoast, pretty just shifting to the next topic kind of answers.
Yeah, which is funny because it's like, why'd you even write it in the first place? Like you have you have the total control of establishing the rules of the world that you're trying to create in the film. Like you have the total choice to decide which questions you do and don't want to answer. But it's like they feel compelled to address all these they must address the argument, and the fact that they're not able to do so. We'll just wave it away. But it's like, well, why'd you leave that in the film? I don't know. Very funny.
Do y'all remember that part is like an hour in where Luke and Satan like are kind of like in their own world for a moment, and they look around and there's all these demons that you see first.
Yes.
I guess they're demons. They're like people with hoods on and black hoods. And then it flips around and then it's a bunch of white women in white, and I guess they're angels.
Yes. That part ruled.
Yeah, that was where it feels like the movie is about to take off, and it never does.
In all sincerity, I really liked that scene.
Oh, me too.
Yeah, highlight of the film and like what we really look for in a genre piece like that. I mean, you know, that's the type of shit you hope for when you're watching films like this. And you know, the movie does finally pick up to that level in the last 15 minutes when Satan feels like fully exposed by Luke's testimony. Luke starts just like throwing commanding, you know, anti-Satan Bible verses at him, and the gig is totally up. Like the mask is off, Satan's here. And that's when shit starts getting real, and that part was great.
Get thee behind me, Satan! I'm sorry. I said, get thee behind me, Satan! In the name of Jesus Christ!
Excuse me, Satan. Get back into the witness stand.
Yeah, his tactic to bring down Satan is to show that he doesn't believe in him or that he's like ignoring him, and he does that by yelling at him, which seems like kind of contradictory.
Or reminding him of things that happened eons ago as documented in the Bible.
Yeah, the greatest historical documentation.
The Bible is not admissible as evidence in this courtroom.
Your Honor, the Bible has been the most reliable source of history than any other ever produced.
Like, that's the one thing Satan could have prepared for, is like being like, all right, he's going to throw all this shit in the New Testament at me. What do I say?
It kind of reminded me of the ending of It, where the kids who are now adults learn that like to beat, or I guess in both the first one and the second one, they learn to defeat the clown. You have to show that you're not afraid of him, but they do it by like beating him to death with a baseball bat. At least in the first one, which to me shows that you are much more scared of this thing than like if they had just simply ignored him every time he showed up.
Right. Yeah, very, very counterintuitive.
So you're saying that Luke is scared or not?
Well, I think, isn't the idea supposed to be that he's like ignoring him or something? Because he says like the one way to overcome Satan's influence is to just like completely disregard his existence.
Well, that might be true, but in the end of the movie, he's saying that if you push away Satan, that he's forced to flee from you. Like, I can't exactly remember that line of argument that you're saying, but I do know it culminates in him actively using scripture to resist Satan and to push him away.
Yeah. I didn't really understand how that was like pushing him away, considering he still was in a room yelling at him and still had him involved in like a lawsuit, and ultimately was trying to win money that Satan has, which who knows how he earned it.
Hard work. He pulled himself up by his bootstraps.
Of course.
And he literally summoned Satan. Like he could have not brought Satan to the world, but like he literally did what witches and Satanists are alleged to do all the time. He called upon Satan to come in physical form onto the world.
Yeah.
And Satan kills two people. Satan claims he's only responsible for the death of 10 people, Job's family in the Bible, but I mean, he causes like 2 different reporters to have pretty serious fainting spells, which it's left to the viewer's imagination whether or not those people are okay.
Right.
He does physically assault 3 of his defense team as well.
Yeah. Remember the part where the old attorney starts rubbing the shoulder of
Oh yeah.
Yeah, what was that about?
That was
He was
really
just like,
weird.
you remind me of my son. You remind me of, or something like that. I can't remember, but
yeah.
One, like I would say, final, like unless we have other stuff to go over, meta conversation with regards to Christian genre film, I wanted to make sure we bring up, harkens to something one of you said earlier in the conversation, which is the importance of the symbolic gesture to Christians. The fact that, yes, his wife is basically willing to wave away the fact that she has brain cancer in order to be like, you got to win this case. Luke, you got to show the devil, you got to make the devil pay out for all the damage he's caused. And I think that that's just like something that's very common in the contemporary Christian ethos, that these symbolic gestures are what's going to save us,
It's like the thing you talked about on the last pod about, like, can you feel the breeze? Like, you can feel it, but you can't see it.
Yes.
The symbolism of Christianity.
Very much so. They love that. Yeah. Flash mobs, Christians love flash mobs. They think it's like the best shit on earth. Because it's this way of using symbols, like using culture to show that like you have power over it. And it's just like maddening to me because like in a weird fucking way, it like works, like, we watched for one of our earlier episodes, we watched the film The Trump Prophecy, in which like everyone prays for Trump to win, and he fucking won.
Oh my God.
Like, I mean, it's just one of those things where it's like, there's something that like, this film doesn't necessarily make a parallel between like being a Christian and being on the right wing, but there's something about the fact that like this demographic wants to influence culture through these symbolic gestures that like actually gives them physical cultural power, because they're very like impassioned and they're very willing to like try to make a change within culture in a way that I feel like maybe other groups don't feel like that they can. Does that make any sense?
The logistics of ignoring brain cancer or trying to keep it a secret from somebody that you are married to and live with are just so preposterous.
Yeah. Well, she didn't know he was suing Satan until they saw it on the news together.
This is not a good relationship.
There's no communication.
What was the deal with the part where they asked Luke? It was like right after they pointed out that he had done porn 341 times. They brought up that he used a racist remark a week ago.
Right.
They just like skim over it. I was like, wait, what?
Did you use a racist remark last week?
Yes.
What did you say?
I don't remember.
And when did you become a Christian again?
Listen, I accepted Jesus Christ into my heart 7 years ago.
7 years! And still using profanity and making racist remarks. No further questions.
I forgot about that. That was amazing.
Fucked up.
It was like, I guess you're supposed to be, as somebody who's rooting against Satan, you're supposed to be like, I don't know. Wait, this was way before the Paula Deen thing, right?
I don't know the timeline of that.
Oh yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think Paula Deen's like basically right in the middle of between when this movie got made and now.
Yeah. So it's like, I don't know what they're trying to prove about like cancel culture or something. Like these are the ad hominem attacks that you're going to get from Satan's attorneys. Also, Satan is not getting his money's worth with these fools, if that's the best they can come up with.
Not to be cynical, I mean, well, we can be cynical about this, but it's also like they're like saying to like the Christians who are watching this, like, it's okay if like you've said racist things or if you've been hateful, like you can still be on Jesus' side. That's how I took it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
totally.
The name of the movie is Suing the Devil, but I think at no point in this movie do they ever refer to him as the devil. They only call him Satan, and the judge also says at one point, "You are suing Satan." And why didn't they just call the movie Suing Satan? It rolls off the tongue so much better. Every time I try to remember this movie or Google it, I always type in Suing Satan. Until I think this most recent time, because I remembered that it was like the fact that it's not called Suing Satan is so it just really irritates me for some reason.
Yeah, dude. And I just did a search for, in quotation marks, Suing Satan, because my first thought was that there is like another very popular thing called like Suing Satan that they're, couldn't step on. I honestly don't find anything. Like, all the search results for this are just Suing the Devil. Like, I really don't understand why they couldn't have just called the movie Suing Satan. It was very strange.
Yeah, and the initials Suing the Devil are STD. They should have thought about that too.
Yeah, when we were planning this whole thing, it was like, yo, you downloaded STD yet? They had no idea podcasters would be reviewing this 9 years later. Those fools.
One thing I liked about this is like definitely a Christian movie trope that we see basically every movie, is that no character can lie unless it's a big deal and it's really obvious that they're lying. Same thing with Satan in this movie.
Yeah, he can't lie. That's so true.
Yeah, the only time he's lying is when his defense decides that they're going to pretend that he's not Satan. And then he has like the Robert Durst guilt burps.
Very
so
proto
gross.
Jinx, yeah, super nasty.
Totally.
I forgot he used to do that in the Jinx. And then he said, I can't believe I killed them or something.
No smoke came out of his ears, though, at least not caught on camera.
Yeah, Robert Durst burps up a fireball on camera in the last episode of the Jinx.
They could have added it in there. It would have been fun.
I guess we should say how the film ends, because we didn't even.
Oh yeah, the most
because
important
it's felt like an afterthought because it doesn't really matter. But he wins the case. Okay, he wins against the devil. He gets awarded $8 trillion.
And the devil gets offered a lollipop, and then when he refuses it from a small child, the small child kicks him in the shin.
The ultimate embarrassment.
And there you see, the devil has truly gotten his due.
Yeah.
But if all of this sounds preposterous, sounds unbelievable, it's because the whole movie was a dream.
That's right. I forgot the whole movie was a fucking dream.
I thought you were just waiting for somebody
No,
else
I
to
literally
bring
forgot.
Oh, yeah, me too.
Like, what does it matter? It's like, no one thought it was really happening. They should have just ended it.
Yeah, it's a movie. Nobody's gonna put this on and think it's like the OJ documentary.
Yeah. But it seemed like, so making it a dream was like, okay, so nothing matters, I guess, as I already knew.
What a cop-out. His wife isn't even sick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he passes the bar and becomes a lawyer, and I guess he's gonna go on to sue Satan or something. The last we see of him, he's like talking to an ad that's just a big picture of a gargoyle next to a whiskey bottle, and that's like supposed to be a sign that like the devil still persists in our culture.
Well, so maybe
fight them.
It's like symbolically like, well, now he's going to be a lawyer who fights big corporations that push the devil's way.
Or he sues those teenagers with the 666 t-shirt on.
It's more likely.
Also, an interesting like little visual plot development was that when he wakes up from his dream at the library, he looks up, and on the bulletin board of the library, there's a picture of, Malcolm McDowell as the devil, and it's like an advertisement for some sort of atheist lecturer, some sort of anti-God person who's giving a speech.
One of those rock star atheists.
Yes, Christian movies love those.
I believe it is on behalf of the anti-God union.
Yes, it does say that. So that was interesting. It was like he had looked at this flyer of someone who is spreading a literal anti-Christ message, and in his mind's eye, that person became the devil who he was fighting against. So that was, I'd say, a pretty thorough description of Suing the Devil, a 2011 film. How would you say you would review this film, boys?
I loved it. I think it was pretty much a perfect movie. God wins once again. Our main character, who we know from the start can do no wrong, even though we found out that he did, including 341 times doing porn, wins again. I'm going to give it 8 trillion out of 8 trillion justly deserved dollars.
I think it's worth every penny. I was going to say, you kind of hinted at it in your review, but I was going to give it a perfect score, because, I really love to see good prevail in a world where often the opposite is the case. I was going to give it 341 out of 341 jack-off sessions to internet porn.
Do you think when they said doing porn, they meant watching it, or that he's got like 341 OnlyFans accounts?
I think it was some weird Australian like turn of phrase where they meant like watching porn, because listen, those guys say all sorts of shit. I got a couple Australian friends and I'm often like, I'm sorry, what was that?
Just ask them to stand, do a handstand, and then you can understand what they're saying.
We love those guys.
Or communicate to you through a mirror or something.
Yeah.
Well, I'll say in this time of quarantine, I've been very susceptible to anything that's addressing the questions I'm asking myself, which, who am I? Is mankind good, or are we nitwits? These kinds of questions. I give the movie 10 out of 10 possible looky dookies.
Oh.
To me, it nails those questions, and despite some of my misgivings with it, I think stuff like the scene where we get to see representations of like Satan's demons and God's angels, I thought was beautiful. I thought there were some beautiful questions raised. In the end, I was uplifted by it. So
absolutely. Yeah. I'm so heartened to hear that.
I guess, yeah, it was a good movie. Second time I've seen it. Fell asleep for a couple minutes this time, but still got to give it one big snake out of one big snake.
Nice. And you know what, Julian? You shouldn't feel bad for sleeping for a couple minutes, because the lead actor was sleeping for an hour and a half of the movie.
Well, it was so fun watching and discussing that with you all. Sam, thank you so much for joining us at Boys Bible Study today.
Oh, yeah, it was truly an honor to be here, and it was super enlightening. And I did have one question for the Bible study, which is, if you had Satan sworn in to tell the truth and nothing but the truth, what is the one question you would ask him?
What's his favorite Chicago album?
That'll probably have to be the group answer. I don't know. It'd be so hard to say. I would say like, are you single, I guess,
Yeah.
Yeah, I would see if he could get me any banned movies that I'm having trouble getting a hold of myself.
Satan is pro-torrenting. Like that is one thing that we can be assured of. He seeds all the downloads. So
blue dress or gray dress?
Shut the fuck up.
That actually brings up another good question, though, about Satan swearing into court. Did he swear in on a Bible?
No, he said he wasn't going to do it.
Yeah.
I don't think he did.
Okay.
They don't do that anymore.
Yeah, when I was doing jury duty, they were super specific about if you don't want to swear in on a Bible, you can just like sign a form. And I thought it was kind of funny because like, does that mean if you swear in on a Bible, like, I don't know, you're like telling everyone that like that you're like a good Christian or something?
I just think it's really funny that the whole like telling the truth and the whole legal system is based entirely on you just being like, I promise. I swear I'm going to tell the truth. You got to believe me.
Will they believe you at the... Will St. Peter believe you at the pearly gates? That's the only trial I'm trying to win. Before we get out of here, I want to know, Sam, how can we listen to Welcome to Chicago?
Oh, it's on anywhere you get podcasts, on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud. You can follow me on the Twitters and the Instagram. On Twitter, I'm S. Sodomsky. On Instagram, I'm Reap of Evil, which, apologies to the Bible for that one. But yeah, it's fun. We've got a good one coming soon.
And also, do you want to plug your music at all?
Yeah, there's a new album coming called Bird Calls Island that I'm really excited about.
Yes.
Probably like within the next month it'll drop. So I hope people like it.
Does it uplift God, would you say?
Yeah, it's definitely my most like embarrassingly Luke O'Brien, Who Am I album.
Yes.
But I think in the end, God wins. So
amazing. Thanks again, Sam, for joining us. It was great.
Oh, hell yeah. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Sam.
Actually, I should say our plugs. If you enjoy our free episodes, please check out patreon.com/boysbiblestudy. We give you at least 2 bonus episodes not available to the public per month. We also do monthly live streams for the faithful. And our outro music is the song Oh My God by Mary. Stream that on Bandcamp and Spotify. From all of us here at Boys Bible Study, Ash, Scott, Julian, and our guest, Sam Sodomsky, we say, peace be with you.
And with you.
Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. I feel your love in me, it's coming from within. Oh my God, my devotion is so unwavering. Divine emotions when you enter me. Every day